Alright, alright, alright. White Boy Rick. Yeah, so that was my terrible Matthew McConaughey impression. I'm gonna keep hitting you guys with these for as long as I possibly can. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to another new release review. And for today, we will be covering White Boy Rick. So White Boy Rick was directed by Yann Demange, stars Matthew McConaughey, Richie Merrick, and Jennifer Jason Leigh. And it basically follows the story, a true story, of Ricky Wershey Jr. and how he became a drug kingpin, a hustler, and an FBI informant all before he was 16 within the 1980s. So without further ado, we can honestly just separate in the positives with this one. First and foremost is Matthew McConaughey. He is a major scene stealer in this movie. Every scene he was in, he just automatically made it better. He's a great presence in this movie. We know he's a great actor by now. He does a great job in this. Next was just the score and the soundtrack from this movie. You can honestly kind of get it just from watching the trailer to this movie. The soundtrack is really good, and even the score in the more intense moments when it's not like, you know, just jamming 80s music. It's really intense too, and it lends to the film very nicely, so I thought all of that was very well done. It kept me interested enough. Anyway, it kept my eyes on the screen, it kept me kind of just bobbing my head, tapping my foot, so the music in this was very nice. And lastly, already for the positives, yep, it's gonna be one of those, was the cinematography of this movie. And it wasn't even just the cinematography, it was just the kind of look of this movie overall. It just had a very natural feel to it. You got to see a lot of Detroit, but the underbelly of Detroit, which we see in a lot of movies, I know, but this one, it looked very nice. It felt very 80s. The cinematography, just the city streets, the dark nights, things like that. You end up in a lot of things like crack houses and people where there's drug deals going on and arms deals and all that stuff. It was very, very nice. It felt dark, it felt dingy, and it really did lend itself very nicely to this story, which honestly, it's not all glamour and glitz. Like, it's a dark story when you really think about it. This stuff is really messed up, and the camera work paired with the music and the score of this movie, it was very, very nice. They went together very, very well. It was very smooth, and it made the movie watchable. It made it enjoyable even at points, actually. To kick off the negatives, this movie had horrid pacing. The pacing in this movie was so damn bad I can't even begin to explain, and that is pretty much all because of the next negative. Anytime it felt like things were getting intense, they were getting interesting, automatically it just went to boring stuff. So then you'd have like 10-15 minutes of really boring stuff, 5 minutes of interesting stuff that would just cut back to 10-15 minutes of boring stuff. And it wasn't just boring to me, it was that boring that the people sitting in front of me and my girlfriend, there was two people, they literally got up and left the theater with like a half an hour left of the movie. So that's what I mean, like you didn't care enough. The pacing really just stretched out the story so much, and it just, the choppy editing, you didn't care about anything that was really going on. I know you were supposed to, but you just didn't care, and that's because there wasn't enough emotion in it overall. Like I said, it was very, very choppy editing. Felt like every time something interesting was happening, like with character moments, something really intense with the cops, FBI, whoever, you would just cut away to just nothingness for 15 or 20 minutes, and that nothingness could have been good if you actually care, but the thing is, with all the choppy editing, you didn't care when I got to those more emotional, or supposed to be more emotional scenes. Then next is what could have been the number one negative, and that is the runtime of this movie. Despite what I just said, this movie really felt like it was a 3-hour movie crunched into an hour and 50 minutes. Like, I honestly felt like if you could find the rough cut of this movie before any editing was done, where they had all the principal photography, it had to be at least like 3, 4, maybe more hours long. I felt like that's the movie I want to see, that 3-hour version, because that's the reason it felt long and boring, is because the editing was so choppy, you didn't care about anything. So if you got to explore the relationships between this family more, how these friendships grew into what they were, how the FBI got involved, things like that, that would have been more fleshed out in a 3-hour version of this movie, but I felt like the producers looked at it and said, no one's going to sit down and watch this for 3 hours, make it 2. And then that was it. That was the call, they made it, and then it ended up making their movie a choppy mess with a shitty runtime, and it sucked because of that. So I really feel it's a 3-hour movie compressed into an hour and 50-minute movie, which of course made the pacing horrible because they were trying to get all the important things in, but there was no lead up to the important things, so in turn they didn't feel important and you didn't care. Next is something that's more so maybe personal to me, that's a little interesting, and that's the fact that I feel like they skipped so many important and interesting parts of this story, like this real-life true story. So many interesting moments, so many important things especially. You felt like they just skipped right over. I'm not talking like glossed over like you got a bit of it. I'm talking they literally just like took it out of the movie and just chucked it away. And that to me that makes me feel one of two ways. Either, again, the runtime should have been longer, which I already discussed, so the next thing it makes me feel is, what if these were the important parts of this kid's story? Which kind of makes me question, was the movie even worth making then? Like, was this a story worth telling if these were supposed to be the interesting and important parts? Now, I will address the fact that I think, honestly, if you read into this real-life true story, it definitely is a story worth telling, but again, that goes back to the runtime. Should have been 3, even 2.5. Not the hour and 50 compressed, like, you know, quick Spark Notes version of this story. And lastly, I think the trailer honestly deserves a bit of a bashing in this sense, because I feel like the trailer left us with a lot of broken promises. It leads you to believe that Matthew McConaughey is this kind of arms dealer in this city, but really, he is and he's not. Like, it feels like that's supposed to be this big thing, like people know who his father is, but they don't. No one cares about his father, and he's a supporting character in this movie. Because he's the big name, they plaster him everywhere, but he really is a supporting character in this movie. And same thing, it names off all these things, like he was a hustler, he was a dealer, kingpin, FBI informant, but all those things in this movie, you feel like they're going to be big moments, like how did he get there, how did he do this, how did he do that, but it doesn't, like, you see a lot of these things, not all of them even, and again, they're only brief moments in this story. Like, it's just, he really isn't this big FBI informant that this movie leads him to believe. He isn't this kingpin. He might have been in real life, but he wasn't in this movie. I'm going to tell you right now, he does not become this big, glorious, Scarface-esque kingpin. He really doesn't. So those are my overall thoughts on White Boy Rick. It was an okay time, it's watchable. So with all that being said, I'm going to be giving White Boy Rick a 5 out of 10. So guys, if you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and let me know, what did you think of White Boy Rick? And be sure to hit me up on the social medias, guys. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Links will all be in the description. And coming out, starting next Friday, we will be getting Fan Vote Friday in on my Instagram every single Friday, so be sure to check it out. Trust me, it's going to be a great time. I'm going to be starting to do questions every single day and replying to your guys' questions, comments, concerns, everything and anything, so be sure to check me out on social media, guys. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap.